So, hi everyone. This session is called Pathways to Empowerment, Envisioning Positive Futures for Women. And it is part of a larger event called Women Who Futures, which is organized by my colleague Abril Chimal and I. And this series of sessions emerged from a desire to have safe spaces for us to exchange, to promote, and to celebrate the work of women in futures and foresight. So we wanted to showcase the diversity of approaches that women are taking in this field, but also reflect on how our identities and our intersectional identities inform our practice, and then find new ways to articulate issues like feminism and gender issues more broadly in futures and foresight. And we have an amazing lineup of speakers. Today is the last day, but I think we have still 8 sessions to go. So please take a look at the program. And if you can join any other session, I'm sure you're going to find something that you like. And when you participate in this event, you agree to our code of conduct, which I will put in the chat in a minute. And because this is meant to be a safe space, we have a zero tolerance policy on any form of harassment and discrimination. And now it is my pleasure to hand it over to Eva and Soha. And yes, the floor is yours. Have a good session, everyone.
Thanks, Thais.
Thanks, Thais. Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session, or good afternoon, good evening as well, because we're not all on the same time. Appreciative of everybody who's staying up late to attend with us. My name is Soha Rashed. I'm a futurist Egyptian, but currently based in Finland, where I did my master's in future studies. I work mostly with the public sector on different topics, so mostly digital transformation, green transition, and gender, which brings us to our topic of today. We will tell you a bit about how this session came to mind, but after Eva introduces herself, so go ahead, Eva.
Thank you, Soha. Hi, everybody. I'm super humbled that we have such an international and diverse crowd. I love that. My name is Eva Tomas Casado. I'm located in Austria, Central Europe. I came to the futures over a spiraling line in my life to think deep and looking for wisdom. And somehow I ended up in futures because I love the idea to create what is coming next in contrary to wait for it. So that's why I'm here today. Along my way, I got to know Soha, and I'm honored to call her a friend in the meantime. And when we got the option to participate in this great event, I was, of course, all in from the beginning because since my corporate backgrounds, I have a technical engineering background from my studies. And you can imagine when you start in the corporate world of the steel industry, which is like as traditional as it gets out there, you get to think a lot about why women are treated differently, have different opportunities. So when it comes to showcase the great work of women, I am all in every time. And Soha and myself were discussing what we could contribute, what unique perspective we could bring. And somehow in the discussion, correct me if I'm saying something wrong, Soha, it was like, we are so focused on all the negative news which are out there, because actually even when you Google the future of women, most hits you find is about how the diversity gap is still there, how the pay gap is still there, how the violence is not getting any better, how this and that, and taking back laws which have already been in place was now a very prominent feature on the news. So you kind of get the notion that there aren't any positive movements going into a positive future. And we kind of wanted to show that there is, and that we can envision a positive future for women and female parts of the world. And that is how we came to this topic. Do you want to add something here, Soha?
Yes, we're generally living in negative times. Like everything is negative around you, and it's very hard to envision a positive future about anything. It's really hard. And it's even worse. Like when you go into a news section website and look for like news about women, it's 2 women were unalive because of this and this. 2 women were, it's like really hard to find positive signals. And we know that good things are happening outside. And we know as well, like, that everybody here in this room, if we want to talk about the gender backlash, could give a lecture for 2 hours without preparing. Like, there are so many examples that are present in our mind. We can do it. But if we want to talk about the positive, it will take a lot of effort. So we wanted to actually plant the seed, like Eva will tell us a bit later. We wanted to plant the seed of positive ideas and to help us focus on positive when we're looking at news and when we're discussing, so that hopefully we have some hope for the future. Yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to do today. We're going to be looking at some positive signals, and then we're going to be further analyzing them. But that's a surprise. We have a surprise for you. So should we start maybe with sharing the session? Let me bring the Miro board link, which thankfully was provided
do you want me to share it?
April. Just a second.
I just want to edit one thing. We are hoping for a really interactive session. We want to hear from every one of you. We want that you add from your local region, from your personal experience. We are aware that there are several languages in the room. Also for me, English is not my first language. So even feel free to share in your native language if you feel more comfortable, and we will find a digital way to translate, or maybe we have someone who can translate in the room. So please don't see the language as a barrier here. It should not be.
And also, if you do not know how to use Miro, just share in the chat. We will take care of it. Yeah, don't worry about that. We're gonna make you a pro at the end of Miro, but it's okay. Take it step by step. So first things first, you will see my picture. If you go to the Miro board, you'll see my picture here at the top right. If you click on it, it will take you to where I am. So I'm here. If you click on my picture, it will take you to where I am. And if you can just write your names in the name section, so we know that you were with us today. Thank you. Okay, so that's going well.
And in case you never used Miro before and you like drag and drop something where you didn't want to put it, there is always the undo one here, which is I think Control-C set, or for the Apple it's the little command set, and you can undo everything you did before. So that's a good one also to know that it is not.
Yes, permanent. So here, if you follow me again, we're on the first board, the green one. If you can zoom out a bit. Yes, so this board, we asked people to share some positive signals with us. Some of you did, so we integrated them here, but we as well had to look for other positive signals. We grouped them in a way, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to share with you what these signals are. You can also, if you click on any one of them, there's an arrow at the bottom which can take you to the actual link. What we want you to do is when I finish talking about every block, I will open the discussion with you, and then you will then tell us similar examples from things you have noticed. You can also copy and paste a link, which will also add a similar news box like this. You can write your thoughts in these sticky notes, share your ideas with us. So, and then also you have at the very bottom, you can react. So these are some reactions we found. The stickers here on Miro are really cool. So you can also react. We even have a mic drop here if you want a GIF. So you can do that at the bottom. Serena wins. Yeah, if you go at the end, there's a mic drop. If you click on the GIF. Yeah, really cool. I discovered this yesterday and I was really proud of it. So let's start. So the first block is about healthcare. A lot of signals in general are about health, but this one is about healthcare, like very announced. So we have 3 signals, and what's really interesting is I mean, most of the news we found was in general about global north. So if you have signals from the global south, please share them with us. But in India, for example, they found that there was a 40% surge in healthcare insurance coverage, which was quite interesting, that like insurance coverage for women is on the rise. And in the US, two things happened. So one of them is that Biden decided that he will increase funding for women-centered health research. So more funding will go into that, which is important because a lot of the research that is done was done on men, but which might not apply to women. So this is good. And the last one is about women in New York can now buy birth control without prescription anywhere. So if you go to any pharmacy in New York, you can actually just buy the birth control without having to have a prescription, which is really cool because that is as well a hindrance for women. So any thoughts that you have that you want to share with us, any signals that you have seen from your background where things, whether legislation, funding, positive signals regarding women and health? Are you seeing anything?
I can add one,
Please.
not necessarily from this, but in Mexico, we, for example, in Mexico has been discriminalized the abortion, and this has been extended in some parts of Latin America, so that it's something good, and that talks a lot about how, even though that there are a lot of things in Latin America that are not so good, at least women are taking control of their own bodies.
Cool. And we also have here France as well has, I'm just gonna add that here to the sticky notes. You can also add that, I will add here. So Mexico decriminalized abortion. So there's a lot about abortion now. Abortion is a big topic. So actually there's a lot of, we're only talking positive today. So yeah, a lot of positive influences regarding abortion. Any other signal?
The other, I can give another one from Mexico, that the Mexico Senate approved digital violence law to stem revenge porn.
Yes,
So
I have
that
that
is also
later.
good.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing.
That will come on later. Any other thing happening elsewhere in the world regarding women and health?
Yeah, I think in Brazil, the campaigns around the HPV vaccine are quite good, and really raising awareness among parents so that girls as young as 9 years old can get vaccinated, and this will prevent cervical cancer. So it's a life-changing choice. So yeah, that's nice.
Saving lives of women. Beautiful.
I have one also in Spain. I don't know if you are aware of that, but now the women from the age of 16, they don't need to ask their parents for consent into abortion. And this, I think, is a big one also because, again, I don't know who mentioned that. At least you are taking control of your own body, no?
Again, what are they now supposed to do?
Sorry?
So what's happening in Spain at the age of 16?
So 16, until now, they, when you were under 18 years old and you were a woman, you have to ask your parents, or you have legally, your parents has to consent into abortion. And now it's not anymore the case.
So we have a question in the chat, which could open a discussion. Consent at the age of 16, consent for abortion. But I think this question we should keep for the next exercise, but it's an interesting one. Do we also, do we need abortion, and do we not also need to prevent women getting pregnant if they don't want to? But I think we keep this for the next exercise. for now, let's focus on the signals. We have another one here. Some provinces in Canada started offering free contraceptives, I believe, with a view to make access available nationwide. Yes, free contraceptives. Yeah, because it shouldn't be always the woman who has to take care of that, right? Financially.
And sorry.
Abril was also telling me that in a different discussion that vasectomies were on the increase, right? We're talking specifically about the Middle East, but maybe this is something else as well that comes to mind. That men are now more interested in birth control themselves. Vasectomies. On the right. Okay, if we don't have any other signals, I will move on to a different topic. Wait,
maybe just a final one connected to what Marcus said. But again, like in Brazil, there's a policy that adolescents can go to the gynecologist without being accompanied by their parents, which makes a lot of difference for some of them to really get access to information. I think this is quite good.
This is really good. Yes. Duplicate. In Brazil. Yes, this access to knowledge, I think, is very important to protect girls at a young age. Yeah, talking about prevention, etc.
Yeah. Tiffany's comment in the chat is also really good, talking about the sexual health in later life.
Promoting a more holistic view of women's health at all ages. Yes. We're going to talk about a bit later as well about menopause. So if you have more signals, just keep adding them to the board or to the chat. We will include them here if anything else comes to mind. But let's move on to another one. I'm just thinking which one I should add. Let's start here, go in order. So this board has a lot of first times. So the first time we're going to talk about is the International Women's. This one. So right there. So for the first time in history, women participants in the Olympics are equal in numbers to that of men for the first time in history. And this is quite interesting that we reached that point already, that the number of men and women participating in the Olympics is equal. So I'm not sure if this inspired any thoughts or not, but it was something positive that we wanted to share and we wanted to talk about. Anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think with sports, because it's so related to like physicality and masculinity and things like that, the more we have women participating in sports, the better. And I think another signal now is the inclusion of trans women and women with sex variations in the women's category at the elite level.
I also think that for the Women's Olympics, it's interesting to, I am assuming that this means also that girls sports, so girls are able to train at a much younger age and more equitably with boys, which I think is a great sign. I'd be interested to know whether the Olympians are coming from, are there still certain countries where you see very far fewer women competing rather than others? But I think that'd be an interesting trend to see as well, which is how acceptable is it to have girls playing sports culturally.
You can look that up. I'll just add that as a note here. But let's look at the country split and where women are encouraged to participate, but that's a good point. Any other thoughts?
So I think what Freya just posted in the chat is really also a valuable comment. We should take on maybe to the next part of our session to discuss that, who decides and where does the female gaze come into sports? Because when it just means that women compete in men's categories under men's rules, then of course we are not there yet, but at least there is an equal amount of people participating. So thank you for that comment. I think we should take that to our next exercise.
Yes, I think Freya is ahead of us. She's in the next exercise.
Keep the thoughts, Freya. Please keep the thoughts.
Yes, keep writing them. We will take them.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry at all. We love it. Just
it makes our
remind
job
us
easier,
later
actually.
on. No need to be sorry.
Another signal that is very important in sport now is the fight for equal pay, and many national teams really being able to achieve that.
Yes. Maybe it's a good segue to go into the next, another one that's on the board. If you follow me, Thais, I'm here, down at, go right, left, right, go to the other side. A bit more. I'm here, yes, I'm there. At that one, the gender pay gap. So the way this is written is a bit negative. It says gender pay gap, only one country in Europe pays women more than men. But for me, I was like, okay, we have a country that actually women are paid higher than men. It's a very small fraction, but they've actually achieved it, and that's Luxembourg. So that's happening.
So let's move on to Luxembourg.
Yes.
Let's relocate.
Okay, a lot is happening in the chat about football still. Female football. Why is it football and female sports?
I think please keep all those thoughts for the next exercise, because they are all super valid, and in my personal perception, that there are showcased professional athletes will nourish all those initiatives, because when you have a stage where you can show your talent and your efforts and your wins and losses, then automatically the funding will come, or automatically, but the funding will come easier along. And what I wanted to add to the gender pay gap, because this is something Soha and myself discussed when preparing also the positive signals board, even when you look at the negative things that are all around in the news, every story has another side. So there's never a one-sided story. So the mere fact that there is such a lot of noise about the gender pay gap, for me, is a positive signal in itself, because we talk about it. Because it's not anymore something which is under the carpet, behind closed doors. It is like it is. We cannot do anything about it. No, it is dragged out. It is staged, and it is talked about, and that's, at least in my perception, the first step to take action to change it. Open for controversial discussion here.
Perhaps one thing that is cross-cutting in sports is corruption, and especially the online bets and speculation. Perhaps, not in the hundreds of millions, but in the definitely hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. So that is affecting both in means of transfers and the outcomes of the matches. So there is an undercurrent that is affecting both genders. And I put Nadia Comaneci as one of the, there were several athletes who defected to the West during Cold War. So as a profile, she would be interesting. So it's in the chat, a link, Wikipedia as a signal.
Okay, I will, to inspire more thoughts here, I will just go over what we're doing on this board versus what we're going to do on the next board. So on this board, we're thinking about signals, what's happening. Next board, we will think beyond, like, why is this happening? But for now, let's think about what's happening, like what is going on around the world.
Equal pay for a work of equal value is a human right. And I think this is, it's in the international law, and this is quite good for us to, move national legislations as well.
So, yeah, and I think in the chat, there's a signal here talking about that actually the gender pay gap has significantly decreased. So that is a positive signal, and it's relevant.
Yeah, globally, women and girls overpassed men and boys in education in every level. Of course, like in some countries, this is not true, but globally, yes.
I mean, how generally speaking, like I'm from Egypt, and in Egypt, women are always higher in terms of grades and in terms of education. What happens at work is different, but in terms of education, we're there already. The jump from education to workforce is where this gap happens, actually. But that's a good stepping point, actually. Maybe it will follow. Okay, so let's go to another signal. I just need to find the neural board because I was out. So here there's a signal which I really like. I'm not sure if it's improving the future of women. This is something we would discuss, but it's the one with the queen on top, the queen tag on top. Yeah, that one. It says a museum's feminist artwork excluded men, so one man took it to court. So this museum, what the artist did is that they created a zone where men are not allowed. They don't have access. So some men got pissed. One started saying, okay, I'm paying a full amount of money, so I want to access this, or I should get a decreased price. Why am I not informed, etc., etc. And then he took them to court. So in the court, the artist said, basically, you are experiencing the art. This is the whole idea behind you not being present. Like, you are experiencing it in a different manner. This is on purpose. So no, we will not decrease your tariff, and no, you will not be told that, and no man will be told at the door that this is the situation. And yeah, we do not know what the outcome is yet of this court case, but I thought it was a cool move, so I thought I'd share that. Any other interesting ways of creating such experiences that make men feel what women experience in general? Because this came as a result of all these men clubs that exist where a lot of decisions are taken and women are not included. So they wanted to create this experience as well. Any thoughts about that?
I didn't add it to the board, but I found an interesting signal. I'm not sure if it's even a signal. So there is a man who is not identifying 100% as male, and he found that video games are not inclusive enough. So he invented a video game where you can and are encouraged to get into the role of a person which is not your gender, not your sex, which is completely out from another perspective of the spectrum, because he wanted to encourage exactly that, to create a space where you can like try on a new skin and walk in the shoes of someone else to get this experience. And I love that idea. So I would play that game. I would like to try it. I will look up the link later to add it here to the board.
Yeah.
And I think now, like in Instagram, TikTok, there's so much of like these inverted worlds, where you put men role playing like as if they were in a position of women, and it sounds so ridiculous sometimes, and then you see like, okay, so this should be ridiculous for women as well, like to be put in this position in an advertisement, to be asked these kind of questions. So yeah, I think it's quite efficient.
Yeah, actually, Abril shared something which reminded me of something else. So it's the signal which I will put, men take part in simulated labor experience and their actions are priceless. So I haven't seen the simulated birth experience before, but I have seen the one about a menstruation where guys get to test what the cramps experience is. And this is something that they do all over TikTok as well. And it's quite entertaining to watch. Yes, exactly. The post of men waxing and waxing as well. I've seen that of waxing as well. So all these experiences which women have to go through that men are now being exposed to. It's quite interesting as well. Men waxing experiences. Any other thoughts?
For anyone interested, there is a fun movie on Netflix available. It's a French film, and it's called I'm Not an Easy Man. And it's exactly about this. So a man is experiencing a head trauma and waking up in an inverse world. And I have to say, even as a feminist woman, you are becoming aware of things that you didn't question before. It's really, so if you are interested in this topic, I'm recommending this French movie. It's really is not very deep and not very intellectual, I have to add. It's really a comedy and a fun thing, but it gives you a notion.
Women questioning what they haven't questioned. Can you add it to the board?
The film?
Yes, the link to the, yeah. So
yeah, of course.
And if you have any, in general, this is also an invitation. If you have any documentaries you think women should, or participants here should look at, please do. Abril is sharing a lot of things, and I know it's quite late, but I'm not sure if she wants to open the mic and tell us a bit.
Yes. I can open the mic. The first one that now that Thais was talking about advertising and all of that, recently there was a social media scandal because Calvin Klein is well known, a brand well known because of their advertising with men pretty much naked. And there was a video of an actor that I don't remember his name, but he is part of the Bear TV series. So the women were going crazy because of that. It was like, and then Calvin Klein released FKA Twigs advertising, and then it was banned in the UK, saying that they were sexualizing, and it was something very scandalous to see her, how she was selling her body that way. So it was like, hey, but she went out and said like, I am deciding doing this, like I am selling my own body, my choice. And it was very interesting to see the counterpart, because the men are allowed to show their body, but women are not. And then it's scandalized, and then you're sold out. And that was very interesting. The other one that I don't know if you're a fan or not, but I think that the Barbie effect, the Barbie movie effect was something that pretty similar to what you mentioned about the museum. When men are called out, and then everyone is upset and pissed off because they were called out in a movie, in a very like with a product like Barbie. So it was interesting to see that phenomenon.
Yes. This year shared with us a Turkish movie. I'm trying to get a link on the board, which reminds me as well of some other movies, Egyptian movies, which I hope would be translated and I could share on the board as well later, of like women pretending to be, it was like back in the black and white days, women pretending to be men in their roles and like showing that women could also do their job. And in this case, they were engineers on an oil rig. But yes, that reminds me of that.
There's also one experiment where you have a letter and then you sign John or you sign Mary. It's the same letter, the same text, and then you ask people to evaluate that. And if it's signed John, people say, oh, this is so thoughtful, so interesting, profound. And if it's Mary, it's like, oh my God, she's all over the place. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So yeah, like this revealing of gender biases and conscious biases is quite interesting as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna add that here.
So when
And
I
so
watched it in the
I'm
1990s, in 94, it sounded really funny, like women doing the exact macho behavior, toxic behavior, violent behavior, and men completely playing the role of women. And the story is taking place in a middle, lower income neighborhood, so those roles are more accentuated. So Eva, you're a mind reader. I mean, as I was trying to gather up the materials, you came up with the inverse world. So yeah, synchronicity there.
Yes. Thais, can you tell me what to write in the sticky note one for my mind? What you were just saying?
and so may I be the bad guy? We should move on because time is flying
Sure.
here on the
Yes.
side.
Thank you for the
Just
control.
to
So I'm just gonna take a look at that. We can continue to go on like this forever, but maybe
yes.
okay, so I
May
will,
I suggest that we just add still the tech ones because I found them pretty interesting. So that in the tech world, there is starting a focus on women's needs, also in virtual spaces, also in design spaces. So I want to showcase out here the example that for the first time there was used a female crash test dummy last year to enhance the safety of cars for female bodies, which I found extraordinary because I never thought about it. It made me think that I never thought about that it was not tested before for a female body. And the same, more women coming into the tech space, they have a different look on things, they have a different focus on things. So things like specially developed clothes for menopause, which are helping women to go through this phase in a more comfortable way, or also the ultrasound bra that can detect cancer sooner. I find this is incredible showcasing that women are entering these spaces and that there are positive developments there, which include the special needs of our simple biology, I would even say.
No, the menopause one, I think it's interesting because it's a label. So, like the vegan label, when you go and find something that is vegan, so they created a menopause label that women can identify what is menopause friendly. And that is quite interesting. Sorry.
No, great. And maybe if you have your own look on the board and a look just over the headlines. So also when you look into the virtual spaces, there is communities now created that are especially designed, so social communities that are especially designed for women's needs. And also I love the one with the search engine that is focused on overcoming the current gender biases that are like programmed inside the algorithms, search engines, and also then at a later stage AI is using. So they are going to the source and trying to change that there, which I support tremendously. Any other signals of the tech, of the design space? Because I think when women enter the design space and things are from the beginning designed differently, that is really bringing us forward in contrary to afterwards change it or adapt it to different needs. Yeah, Stephanie is mentioning in the chat that there is more and more programs that try to encourage women to enter the STEM fields.
It is not necessarily tech, but how cities are being designed more. It's been more common to talk about how cities are designed for women access.
Yes, Deepshika, please share.
Hi, my name is Deepshika. I'm from India and I'm a designer. So generally when I design, whoever the user is the user. So we don't really specify whether they're female, they're male. There is no specification as such. You will look at the user and then you will try and understand what the needs of the user are. So during that time, I think the advantage that designers have is that they kind of sway away from stereotypical images of what, what does a female need, what does a male need. And also, I was just thinking, like, this is with respect to the other discussion that we had in stepping in the shoes of, the person that you're thinking about, because that's, as a designer, that's generally what we do. And we were discussing examples of how, there were various ways of simulating what female feel for males. But many times what I've realized is even females do not understand other females. So there could, for example, in the workplace, there are now rules in India where you can take leave if you are on your period. So for certain days in a month, you can take leave. And I've actually seen ladies who don't have, too many cramps or don't have too many issues kind of question when other ladies take it. Whereas some ladies go through a lot of pain during that time. So I think that general attempt to try and step into another person's shoes is for every individual. It's not just like, the males need to understand the females need to understand the males. So, and then, yes, definitely, I think a lot of the designers have been, so in technology, you would see in history a focus on the needs of male, but that was generally because the user was first considered as the male, and the female didn't have the voice to be recognized important enough to be designed for. But then as the one, the examples that you're showing now, that's changed. The female has a lot more power, ability to voice themselves. You have so many platforms that don't need any regulation. You can freely voice your opinions. So I think that's a positive aspect. Things are changing, definitely, and we are becoming more aware of individual needs more than any specific gender needs as well. Yeah, that I just wanted to add that part.
Thanks a million. We actually have a signal as well about Spain later on the board, but we will not discuss it now. But just I will share a couple of more quickly, and then to inspire you to add later, and then we can move on. So Spain as well has now this paid leave for menstruation on the board. Spain approves paid menstrual leave, first country to do so in Europe. So I added India 1 year. Another signal I found interesting, which I will share before we move on to the next one. Next exercise, but then I also invite you very much to later take a look at signals and continue to add more. So at the very top right, Thais, if you go, yeah, here, I'm gonna just share this very last one. So the UK now convicted the first person, or took the first person to jail for cyber flashing. And I think this is the first where we've been talking in the area of digital violence a lot about legislation, but it's the first time that we see such a case, a guy being actually jailed for it. So implementation of legislation is quite interesting, and I think it's important to protect women in the digital space. So this is happening. Again, an invitation to take a look at the board and to look at the signals and to add more whenever you have time. Yes, I think we can end this exercise now, and Eva can take you to our next surprise. But again, keep thoughts coming, share on the board. We very much need your input. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you very much for sharing so much until now. And actually, I love the energy that is growing here, because I don't know if you realize we really started to focus on the group on the positive things that are going on instead of the negative, and this is exactly the point of this session. So thank you so much for this part until now. So now we are going to do something experiential with you. Shall I share my screen, or shall I, or Thais, are you going to share again? How are we doing that? Thank you. So when Soha and myself prepared this session, of course, some of you are from the Futures realm, we don't want to talk only about signals. but to see also where these signals could lead to. So originally we wanted to design the second part as a futures wheel, but in our discussion, we kind of found that the tools in place, they are all very mechanistic, very stiff, very fixed, not really relational. So we came up with this new tool, which is called the Futures Tree, because we found we don't want to focus on consequences, which at least in my understanding has more a negative connotation than a positive one. We want to focus on growth, on what can grow out of these signal seeds we put into the ground. We want to discuss how we can nourish them to make it really grow a big, fantastic tree, which is positive female futures. Because what we also found when we were discussing this session, a lot of times we are focusing on the negative in the here and now, but we are not really discussing what the vision is. Yes, we have the buzzwords, we have equity and we have equality, but what does it really mean for us, these words, and in a very concrete thing, how could that look? So as said, this is an experiment. This tool was just invented. It is not finished, not published, not completely designed through. So I would invite every one of you to co-create this tool now with us and enhance it better for the future. The idea was to look back to the signals we just discussed, or take on the threads we have already in the chat, to like cluster them a little bit together. So for example, we have some signals in the realm of menstruation. So in the sense that there is one where a menstruation pad is used to make a blood analysis, or there is a lot of movement going on that hygienic articles are tax-free or even available, made free. So in my understanding, when you group that together, it is all going into the direction of normalizing our biology despite it being something you just talk about behind closed doors or talk about only in pure female spaces. So as a next, when we plant this signal as for the roots of our tree, what part of trunk could grow out of it? So what does it mean for our society when female biology is something completely normal and you talk about in a normal conversation? So what change do these roots support? And then in the next step, to think further what was already done in the chat and what I love so much about futures, and what crown could grow out of it. So what could it mean then for maybe a little bit more distant future? How could it contribute to a more equitable, equal world? Have I been clear? Because as said, it's an experiment. Please ask a question if you have one. Or we start right away with the discussion. I'm happy with both.
Yes, Freya left already after she put all these questions in the chat.
That's a shame.
Yes.
But we have her chat, so we can build on her legacy. That's a great thing also. So for me, maybe I start off because I thought about this with the biology and the menstruation. So when we normalize this, and I think there is already a big move done in that direction when I compare it to my teenage years back in the 90s, where it was really like a no-go to even mention a tampon in a diverse group of people. You were only hissing about with your direct friends. And now, for example, in the school of my son, there is hygienic products available on the toilet for the girls to take them. So I find there was a big step made. So I think in my perception, and please, I'm open for discussion here, that the change that is supported here is that so it is a step into equality, because we don't need to suppress one essential part of us being women. We don't need to leave it behind closed doors, but we can take it wherever we want to go. And also it is used as an asset. When you look about on this signal with the blood testing, it is not anymore thought about something which needs to be disposed, which needs to be cleaned away. No, menstruative blood can be used for a medical purpose. So I think the differences in biology are more seen as an asset than as an hindrance, in my perception. Would you agree or not?
I can jump in. Actually, yesterday, my students at their final presentation, actually the theme that they chose was the future of menstruation, and they created this product for fertilizer on women's menstruation, and this was made like and in a way that no one scandalized, but like they were curious about how this work and all of that. So it was very interesting because it's something that well, at least in my generation, is not something that you talk about normally, but they were like very open, and it was a team with two female and one male, and the male was very actively engaging and doing the interviews and sharing his perspective of things, no, how he takes care of his partner, and what does he do to make her feel better in those days. And yeah, it was interesting for me to see how the age gap and how the mentality also changed with that for people my age, that it's still a taboo, versus people their age that it's more open and more wide and more, yeah, normalized, to say it somehow.
Antonia, you raised the hand.
Well, Abril really, I don't know that I'm going to say anything different than Abril just said, but I do think that when I've seen TikTok or Instagram, I have seen more viral videos around things like around women sometimes educating their male partners, or men educating other men on things like really basic women's health issues. And I think I'm Gen X, but I was lucky. I grew up with my dad and my stepmother, but my dad was the one who helped me with my period when I first got it, and was able to kind of explain what a pad was, what a tampon was, and I think that this is part of what fathers would want to do. And I think that part of what I see is in the trend is normalizing that for men, so they can kind of get a sense of what it's like for their girlfriends, their wives, their daughters, their sisters. And I do think I hope that that's true. And I think also, to be honest, I think some of what's spurring that is this conversation of that lots of people are having all kinds of experiences with their bodies, especially Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Like these are not Gen X and Y, but rather the younger ones. Everyone's hitting puberty, and it's a huge deal, up to and including things like gender assignment or gender identity. And to kind of normalize that conversation is helping to normalize puberty for women too. And I think that's a big change from when I was a girl.
So how would you call, and also Avril, sorry, I did not even say thank you for your contribution before. How would you call the underlying shift? Do you have words for it? Or, because for me, it's really what normalizing is. Have we not been normal before? This is the question. But in this, it goes into this direction for me. So it's the difference is normalized. It is not the notion that women need to change in order to become equal to men, but on the contrary, that women can be 100% women and at the same time be equal to men. For me, I cannot grab it directly in a buzzword. Or how would you, can someone support me here?
I'd actually be interested in Marcus's opinion on this, or Basir, because I think for me what it is it's just normalizing a conversation regardless of gender. Where in my generation the expectation was that my mother would have these conversations with me because she's a woman, I'm the girl, and that would be the expectation, right? And then my dad would have the conversation with my brother, right? The conversation of puberty, or the conversation of how to treat women, or any of that. But now I feel that the conversation is normalizing where both parents take that role, or that there are people in children's lives of both genders who have those conversations and who are invited to have the conversations. But that's my observation. And also, I'm American living on the West Coast, so that's also potentially cultural, which is why I don't know whether, for example, Basir or Marcos necessarily feels as welcome to engage in these conversations with the women in their lives, or if that's just a perception on my end.
So, I was thinking while you were all talking about this, how because it's I think it's not so easy to find this what we are struggling on, this underlying value shift. However, when I think back in my experience, I think a major shift, and I don't know how to articulate it, is there was a kind of, at least I was growing up in Spain. Okay, so I was born in '75, so I'm on that age. I was in the '80s, late '80s, when all these topics start popping around, etc. And for me, we were totally, I don't know, I would use analphabets for this topic. Not only the girls at that time, but also the boys. We did not know anything about it. And this is the major change I sensing now, in fact, that there is information going around. There is information going around in the schools that are reaching both boys and girls. And then, of course, what you are expecting, I agree with you, Antonia. What I would expect then as a parent is that you play a role, active role on that sense. And at that time, when I was growing up, there was no active role. I mean, once I have a sister, but there was no active role towards my sister or towards me. So I also did not receive such such indication on that. So I don't know. It's quite a interesting topic. There has been for me a major shift, as Eva mentioned before, when you have an initiative in a school where you are taking care of that already, that you have these health dispensers in the toilets, etc., for the women. So I think this is something. Yeah, I would say, I don't know, the major shift for me is education, in fact, in that sense. Because then, these boys and girls, they are growing to adults. This is the thing, no? And then they will have it in them already. This I don't know, my view on that.
No, thank you. I edit this as the underlying shift is that we have now information equity, and from Ye Peng, I read in the chat, democratization of knowledge. I think it would be in the same, it would hit to the same target. Yes, I agree. So I think that is a very positive change, and at least I added in the crown, because out of information equity we can even move from the biological part, because information equity also goes into the direction of finances. For example, there is we have signals on the board which is showing that there are apps developed especially for women to educate them on finance, on how you invest money, how you grow a fortune. Yes, the capitalist discussion, I think, has no. So we could have it here, but it would take over the room. And but I think the underlying value shift here is also out of all this. So at least I agree that the common thread in these signals is that the information is more democratic divided or equitable divided. Any other thoughts?
Back in college, my roommate who was doing her, I mean, we were in a big house, several roommates. She mentioned that, it's on the theme of women educating men on women's health. That, the entire medical, knowledge is based on a man's body, but whereas a woman's body is much, much different, the way it reacts and so forth. So a lot of the times that just hinders treatment. So there were these variation. I mean, this is a conversation that took place in early 2000s. So since then, a lot has changed. So I guess the public health dimension of it is the gateway. And if it wasn't for public health, it wouldn't have achieved that. It wouldn't have achieved to the current level that it has come to.
Thank you, Basir. Yes. So the interesting where I have to jump on that is it's a hen and egg discussion, no? Were the first females included in the public discourse in order to put the focus on the health, or was the focus put on the health, and in course of that, females were more included? Because I think really when we talk about underlying value shifts, I really feel that more and more, maybe not 100%, but more and more diversity, and not only in male, female, but diversity in its full rainbow spectrum sense, with race and cultural background and everything what is in between male and female, is more and more seen as an asset and not so much anymore as a hindrance. Maybe I'm too positive here. I acknowledge that, because I tend to be inspired and enthusiastic. So you can take me off of my high horse and tell me it's not. But how does the group see that?
Well, I think so. I'm just, while you were, just as you were talking, Eva, I was Googling. So in the United States, what I've seen is there's a rise in medical training and education around diversity training, and that is not only for medical professionals. So not only is that being more thoughtful around dealing with transgender or not gender nonconforming, but also in particular in the United States, women of color whose pain is frequently not as acknowledged by the establishment, and doctors tend to ignore that. There's a bias around pain tolerance and pain management for women of color in the States. Has it improved? I doubt it. But are they? Has at least the conversation surfaced? Yeah. Is there formal training happening? Yes. And I think that, and that's to me, it's a weak signal, but it's heading slowly in the right direction. I don't know whether that's consistent. I would say, on the one hand, I don't know if it's consistent outside of the United States, but I'd also say the United States, given its racial history, might be an anomaly in this case anyway. I don't know. I honestly don't know if it would be the same in India or in a different country, that women of different complexions are treated differently in terms of their pain.
Hi, I really wanted to just answer that question with respect to India, but could you just articulate the question once again?
Yeah, Deepshika. So, in the United States, because of our historic racist past, one of the things that happens is women of color, and in particular, the darker the skinned you are as a woman here in the United States, the more the establishment tends to disregard you. And what has happened in the medical profession is that African American women frequently, when they go to the doctor complaining of pain, they are disregarded. They don't get the same number, they don't get the same tests. The doctors kind of have a bias about investigating the pain more deeply. And so whereas a white woman might go and present the same symptoms, the white women will get more tests, more detailed care, more x-rays, things like that. Women of color do not. And so it's a sensitivity training that's required, but it's very much related to racial bias and discriminatory bias. But I don't know if that's specific to the United States or whether in other countries, in any country, and it could be Asia too, if you're of a darker complexion or maybe perceived of as a lower caste, whether your medical care is less sensitive.
Okay, so in India, you have a range of colors. So you have from, as in every spectrum you can imagine within the shades, you would see them. And I personally, in my family, I have all the representatives. And so there has never been any issue when dealing with hospitals or doctors or any kind of medical emergencies. However, there is a lot of talk in India with respect to the entertainment business, with respect to the corporate world. So if and there are biases definitely even today, which is quite a shame because India actually has all colors. And it's not like I can imagine if there was a majority of one color, one might be seen as dominant or superior, or psychologically it might be the case, but that's not the case in India. You have people in very high power who might be considered slightly darker in shade. And so they do brilliant people in all different shades. But yes, in corporate, I have heard some of my friends say that, the other girl was fairer, she was prettier, she got a better raise. Or in the entertainment business, people are now very, very careful what they put on the TV. So we used to have these ads which used to talk about being fair and lovely, or being, like having lighter shades. But now there is more proactive sort of attempts to recognize that all shades are beautiful and that you should feel beautiful in your skin. So I think that is something that is being done in India quite a lot now.
That's a great example of a weak signal, maybe.
Sorry, Antonia. Avril, you wanted to add here.
Oh, yes. Well, I think that in Mexico, it's similar to what Deepshika mentioned. Probably it's not a problem within the healthcare, within the country, but more in entertainment and business, because it usually it used to be only white women, or like they were choosing white women, the skin, the color of the skin and blue eyes, because we were used to this part because it's better. But now there is a movement of brown people color, the color of your skin, and being proud of that. And also to acknowledge people like me that these just past 2 years, I recently find out that I'm not too dark. My skin is not too dark for the eyes of the general public. So that doesn't necessarily make me a stereotype of a Mexican, but I'm not too white to be like in the other side. So I'm a mix, literally. So those narratives are also changing here in Mexico. But on the healthcare, for example, in Europe, there has been a lot of conversations about Latinas women, that Latin women that go to the doctor in any country of Europe, and they are not they are not diagnosed properly because of the differences, and also because, oh, it's Latina, they are exaggerating, or oh, they are Latinas, and so probably it's nothing, and they are doing a big fuss, but at the end it turns on to be cancer, or turns on to be something bigger, and the healthcare is not assisting that, because of the different because of the cultural thing also. Diseases also come with culture, so it's interesting to see how that portrays. And just the last thing on what Antonia mentioned about, like, just hair care. Now that you have a curly hair, now there are like specific places where you can take care of your curly hair and these type of things, because everything in beauty was meant to be for white women with straight hair and all of that. So now it's like, okay, you have curly hair, you have different types of hair, then how you can take care of that. So it's interesting.
I just wanted to
Thank
add
you.
that in India, there is a huge movement for awareness. So most of your educational, as in sector, so your universities, your training centers, a lot of them have women cells now, where you can go and lodge a complaint if you feel that there has been, something that has made you uncomfortable. And or if you think that you've been treated unfairly in a situation based on the fact that you're a woman. So with respect to positive change, I definitely see that. I see a lot of empowerment. I see a lot of women knowing their rights now. I see a lot of HR training sessions where the employees are taught what are your rights, and they're given tools and techniques to ensure that their rights are met. So I think that is a huge change that is happening in India as well. Thank
I
you.
just wanted to contribute to the discussion about the racial differences in healthcare. Being an Egyptian in Europe, an example that happened to me and that happened to my friend, and I'm not sure if it's racism, if it's ignorance, but there's a lot of assumptions that go into your health because of where you come from. So a friend of mine was at a doctor, and she asked her if she had milk when she was young, because she assumed that all people in Africa, don't have access to milk. I was diagnosed with intolerance to dairy. I mean, there was a blood test, but as well, the concept was a lot of people from your region have that, but it was a temporary thing. It was a long-term thing, so it was probably a symptom of something else. So there are these assumptions that come as well based on these racial differences, which I think are part ignorance and part racism. So yeah, done here.
Thank you. So looking at the time, let's imagine, let's see what we can, I love what Deepshika said, because it is really, we see the positive now. No, there is a lot going on. There is some of those, I named them, I labeled them. If you want to change the wording, feel free to do so, or edit in the chat how you would word that. But I feel especially on the knowledge and on the awareness side, there is a lot of progress already made. We have already, the tree has already several annual rings it can build on. So now the question is, what can grow out of it? What do we imagine to be the positive future based on these roots and this trunk. I leave you room for imagination.
I hope that we can go from acknowledgement to appreciation of our differences. I think this would be a good one.
Loved it. I'm going to put here, I imagine that a woman is going to the doctor and is treated as the individual she is, whatever is the color of the skin or the cultural background or the aspect of the hair, but that simply the individualization of medicine is breaking up these biases and limitations we were just discussing here. This is also based on what was mentioned before in the design space, that you design for individuals, you don't design for a specific box.
I was thinking of what Antonio had mentioned about, you know, how comfortable are people talking about certain issues with their family members and friends. And I actually can see the difference now, because I see my nieces and nephews, and they have a very factual way of talking. There is no notion of, is this right, is this wrong? And I think it's because of the way that the family as a collective took on the responsibility that we are going to educate everyone in our family. So it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. As a mother, I want to educate my son because I know he will be supporting women in their, you know, lifetimes. As a mother, I want to educate my daughter because I know she will be supporting men in her lifetime. So it's not, there is no you know, hierarchy anymore. It is just a realization that everyone is going to be supporting each other. So we need to be more empathetic towards each other, but empathy can only come if knowledge is there. And that knowledge needs to begin right at the beginning. It's not something that, you know, it's great if schools are educating students, but when you are talking to your sister about her experience, it's a very different way of understanding than if your teacher is telling you about, you know, what is menstruation about. So I'm not sure exactly how to frame this, but maybe a cultural understanding or approach to you know, educating, but not in the formal sense.
I love that. I got hooked on the empathy part. How could we frame that? So hi, Nadia.
I don't know. I was just capturing everything on the next board.
Great.
If you can type that, that would be great. If you can type in it, what you just said in the chat, we can just copy it.
I love also the comment of Yipeng Yap in the chat, a future where firsts no longer exists, it just is. I support that.
Yes. So the next board, we don't have much time left, unfortunately, but the next board, we would invite you maybe later where you can actually, so the previous exercise, we were imagining futures based on the signals that we discussed, positive futures based on those signals. But in this space, we invite you to just think about positive futures for women, whatever the topic is, and to share your ideas, like here, a future where firsts do not exist, etc. think about it. Please add to the board. The board will remain open. Please share. I don't know, Eva, if you have something else to say before we move on.
No, I'm okay for the moment.
Okay, the next board, quickly, please, you can go there. So here you can share anything you want. It's not about futures, but here you can share quotes that you like, movies, whatever you feel like sharing with us. Please do a positive space for all of us. A song, a quote, a book that you think we should read, an article. Feel free to use the space to do that. Next slide. We want to congratulate you for continuing this course, and now you're all Neuro heroes. And we like to thank you for joining us today. It was a great and inspiring session. Eva, you want to say some final words?
Yes, this I want to do. Thank you so much for everybody for participating and contributing. I have a positive feeling. I'm going positive into the near and the longer future who comes, because I know there are great women and men, like we're here in the room and everything in between, who are supporting the cause and who want to go into a more equitable and equal direction. So I leave with a good feeling. I hope everybody does. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva and Soha. This was fantastic and so good to look at the positive seeds of the world we want to see come true. So the next session is starting in 5 minutes, and it's called The Role of Storytelling in African Futurism. So please stay with us. And you're going to receive one email from Luma asking for your feedback. So please provide feedback for us, be it, about the whole event and also specifically about this session. And then we're going to share this with Eva and Soha. So thank you so much, and see you in 5.